Welcome back to Studio F, where on Fast Times Willy B, we'll be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Russell.
Welcome back to Fast Times Willy B. I'm Willy B. I got Mo back. Mo, how are we doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. So today we'll be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. TASM 2, as some like to call it. The second movie in the Mark Webb Spider-Verse. Wish it wasn't the last one in the Spider-Verse, based on how this one ends. I would have liked to see what the next steps were. But as we know, we know the opinions of a lot of people on this movie, but we're going to give ours today. And we're going to tell you what we like, what we didn't like, and what we thought was all right. But Mark Webb back in the director's chair. Obviously, when you get movies like this, a lot of the returning cast. You got Andrew Garfield, you got Gwen Stacy, you got Emma Stone playing Gwen Stacy. You got Jamie Foxx as Electro. You got Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn into the Green Goblin. Sally Field's back. We get Felicity Jones as Felicia, who was probably going to be, Catwoman, or the Black Cat, as we get down the road, but we didn't get that. And then Paul Giamatti also makes an appearance in this one. Big fan of Paul Giamatti. We'll get into him in this movie, but for the most part, I love Paul Giamatti. But let's start with the good. And an easy way to start is the acting. And once again, we talked about it with last week's episode. The good in both of these movies is definitely that we get a great group of actors. And again, for the most part in this movie, there are a couple that we'll get into, but especially in our leads. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone once again killed it, and they usually do in anything they're in.
Yeah, their chemistry, in the first movie, honestly, I think was significantly elevated in this movie compared to the first one. In the first one, of course, because they're a couple just starting out, and the love interest is just kindling there.
The honeymoon phase.
Exactly. But we get to see a bit more as it goes on of them in finishing up high school, the passing of her dad, how it kind of haunts Peter after the fact, how it takes a toll on that, and they give stellar performances in both of being madly in love, caring for each other, but also to their breaking points of something's got to change if we want this to keep happening. Something's got to work out here.
Yeah, for sure. You said it perfectly. It's elevated because they're starting to deal with the adult issues. And, they're getting into college. They just graduated high school. But how many 18-year-olds have to deal with losing a dad who tells you, keep this promise, don't be with my daughter, but you love this girl, and, the haunting. And those were really good scenes, too, there at the beginning when he would see Captain Stacy in the background with the family, or in the cop car during the one scene.
Yeah, and it carried out throughout the entire movie. Even when you think it's not there, during the ending Electro fight, it shows up.
Yeah.
Image of him even shows up. And like you said, he made the promise where he's just don't get her involved. But he's so madly in love that, when they have that conversation outside of the family dinner after graduation, and he's I promised your dad I wouldn't. I think I gotta stay away. Gwen even says, you keep doing this to me again and again, implying that since the first movie, they have had this exact issue and this road bump multiple times, that we're just not experiencing it for the first time and thinking that she's making an extreme decision of I'm done. I'm breaking up with you. Yeah. It's that, no, since the first movie and their relationship, that they have come to this checkpoint multiple times of him being conflicted, being with her, and being I don't know if I can because I promised your dad, breaking it off, getting back together. But that the one we finally see was Gwen's breaking point. And I don't want to keep doing this.
Yeah. And it ends up coming to what we thought would be a happy ending until we get to the final of the movie. But I don't know if this is a hot take, because I know a lot of people think highly of this version of Peter and Gwen. But I would go as far to say that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is the best comic book relationship we've ever gotten in a movie.
Oh, I'm not gonna argue that. I'll die on that hill every day. I mean, I've been saying I'll die on the hill that these are my favorite, or in my opinion, the best movies, Spider-Man movies. So I agree, and that's one of the big contributing factors of why I put up this argument each time for these movies.
Yeah.
Is that their romantic relationship is the best in the live action movies, in my opinion. The Peter and MJ relationships in like Tobey's trilogy, as well as Tom Holland's, like, they're good, but
I'm not even just talking about Spider-Man.
Oh, just in general, just in any comic movie.
Yes.
Okay,
don't get me wrong. I love Tony Stark and I love Pepper Potts. I love Superman and Lois Lane, but I think with what we've gotten on the screen, this is the best chemistry relationship we've gotten in a movie. In these two films, and again, I'm not discrediting because I do think Tony Stark from Robert Downey Jr. from the MCU and Pepper Potts are right on their tail, and there's some other ones in the MCU that are on their tail. There's some other DC ones that are on their tail, but for me, this is my favorite relationship I've seen in a comic book movie.
You're gonna really like this take just because you mentioned that, and I'm going to bring up another comic couple just briefly, so we don't get off track of who I think may contest that, and it is Bruce Banner and Betty from the 2008 Incredible Hulk. And reason why is because you just watched Strangers. Yeah. And who was in that I mentioned?
Liv Tyler.
Yep.
Or Liz Tyler. Is it Liv or Liz?
I think it's Liv.
Liz. Is it Liv? Okay. Steven Tyler's daughter.
Yeah. And she is part of that couple. She plays...
she is.
So that's the only couple
that's a wild card pull right there. That one might catch some flack. I feel like mine's not too far fetched. Maybe it is, but it's just how I feel it, and it's a lot of it goes back to Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, who are towards the top of the craft when it comes to acting, and it shows. And I said what I said.
Yeah, and like I said, I agree with you absolutely, and like these movies kind of just showed the world even more what Andrew Garfield can do, and just kind of like reassured everybody that like even though like coming into the 2010s and like to the mid 2010s that Emma Stone still kills it on screen, any role that she has, and they've both have just been continuing to skyrocket in any roles that they've played after the fact.
Right after these movies would have been Hacksaw Ridge and La La Land to kind of show what came of these two. And then now, obviously, they're continuing to do big things. One of my favorite Andrew Garfield movies is Tick, Tick, Boom, and I'm not even a big musical guy.
I was going to just bring that up.
La La Land's another musical I love. Emma Stone was also in Poor Things. So, like you said, they did their thing here, and it's allowed them to grow into two of the best in the game.
It's become a staple of their growth in their careers, and it's one that, like how we're doing now, and other people have looked back on and have immediately reflected. So, couldn't agree more.
Another performance like this one, I like Jamie Foxx. There are moments towards the beginning, before he's Electro, that I'm not super fond of, and we'll get into them, but that was more of the writing than his acting. I thought he did a very good job in the role, and once he's Electro, I thought he excelled.
Absolutely. Like, his character at the start, his character at the beginning, it was so hard to watch, especially just like when he first interacts with Peter, where he's just walking down the sidewalk. It was like, oh, I wonder if this is Max. Yes, because he's holding all these blueprints and he's like fumbling with them. It's like one rubber band can fix that problem. One rubber band can fix that problem, and then
one
just the
circle of rubber.
Yeah, exactly. And
tiny.
Saves a lot of people's lives.
Saves a lot of people's lives.
But just the fact.
God damn it.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I had to.
I love it.
But that, like, if he just used that rubber band, then, this all wouldn't have happened. The excessive fanboy, over Spider-Man, because it was apparent that he was a fan of Spider-Man before their interaction.
Yeah.
But their interaction of him saving him, kicked it into gear. It took over his entire apartment.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you saw he was, like, talking to himself, pretending to be Spider-Man on his birthday. Of, like, you're my best friend. You came to wish me happy birthday.
Yeah.
Like, that just got weird. But then after he finally became Electro, his character started to become real likable. And like I've told you in private kind of before that, when I first seen the movie, I wasn't a fan of the character overall. I kind of just thought, But after some time and a rewatch, it grew on me. And after watching it this time, I realized it was kind of harsh at first, and that if anything, like I said, after he becomes Electro, that's when his character really takes off and like steals the show, kind of.
Yeah. One thing that comes with Electro and Spidey in this movie is great visual effects and great action sequences. I love the slow-mo action we get. I love the score that accompanies Electro, too. Shout out Hans Zimmer. Before this watch, didn't realize that Hans Zimmer did the score, but it makes sense.
Really?
Yeah.
He does incredible scores. Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, Hans Zimmer's the man.
That's my favorite one that he does is Blade Runner 2049. And, like, granted, I mean, that's one of my favorite movies, so I absolutely love that. But the score to every sound, like, you feel it with every movement that Electro makes.
Yes.
And those slow motion shots, especially during the grid fight. Yeah. My favorite one is when Peter's just swinging around the corner of one of the poles, and you literally, like, it's in slow-mo where you see Electro, like, materialize and break that pole because he's trying to get a hit in on Peter. Like, and the sound just reflects it so good.
Get Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Oh, yeah. And you just hear him, like, even, like, Peter just go, I hate this song. And I just thought, that's really bold for a man who has the Spider-Man theme as his ringtone.
Right.
Yeah, and also, like, when he first encounters, like, Rhino in the street during the, it was the uranium, wasn't it? During the start where, like, he's whistling the Spider-Man theme as he's webbing him up.
Yeah.
Like, you're really going to hate that when your entire music or anything you have associated is just the original Spider-Man theme. Not to hate on it, but you can't really pass judgment on that.
Exactly. No, but the score that accompanies Electro is fantastic. The score in the entire movie is great, but the action sequences we get, and the two that really stick out, because there's a lot of action in this movie, but the two that really stick out are obviously the Times Square scene and the grid scene. And the grid scene, both of them have stunning visual effects. The grid scene's more, it's that final fight. It lasts a little longer, but the Times Square scene, you get some gorgeous cinematography, an abundance of color. You're in Times Square, so you kind of assume you're going to get that. You get some awesome slow-mo shots of him saving people from touching an electrocuted pole. It's just, anytime these two are duking it on screen in this movie, the action, the VFX, and the score was at the top of its game.
I couldn't agree more. And like I said, kind of earlier with the grid scene, like, just the slow-mo shots and seeing, like, they really emphasized on, like, the ability for Electro to, like, materialize himself in any given moment. Yeah. And we got to see that a lot during the grid fight. One thing I will say about the Times Square fight that kind of upset me was its ending.
That's fair.
Because, he, like, just gets out of that screen, he just supercharged himself, and he's like, where's Spider-Man? And he dropped all of these screens from off these buildings, complete chaos. Mm-hmm. You're telling me what finally took him down was during this chaos that he's inflicting, Spider-Man just goes, puts on a firefighter helmet and gets the guys, off engine and is like, come on, let's just spray him down. And that's what does it?
Yeah.
Like, come on. But as for, like, the grid scene, I love that it took him and Gwen thinking together of, like, how to bring him down, of, like, we need to overcharge him. Mm-hmm. And that she was a part of the plan. And also of her helping him, like, with his shooters, being like, did you magnetize him?
Yeah.
And referencing kind of...
That's why you were number 2.
Yeah, kind of, exactly. Referencing back to the first movie of, like, Midtown's second greatest student. Second?
Yeah.
I loved that callback to it. And they kind of do a lot of, like, foreshadowing or callbacks in the movie. Like, I thought it was at least foreshadowing in Gwen's speech at the start of the movie where she's like, we fall short.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that kind of, like, referencing how, like, Peter just falls short of saving her later in the movie?
Yeah.
I was like, I guess it's up to your perception. Yeah. Exactly. I was like, is this a callback or a not callback, but a foreshadow to, like, later on in the movie? Yeah. That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. Speaking of that, another strong part of this movie for me, again, and I said it in the first one, is the emotional pull. This movie's not afraid to make you cry, and obviously the ending. I'd still really put that ending in the good because, yes, albeit tragic, heartbreaking, heart-shattering.
I cried.
It is a really strong scene in this film, and that's Gwen's death. And yes, I cried too.
I still cry like every time.
Oh, me too. I cry even, I cry. Another strong emotional scene for me is when Peter asks about when Aunt May is in his room, says, "When did you do all this?" And he asks about his father again, and she goes, "You're my boy." Like, that scene also gets me.
I was going to bring that one
up. And that's another reason I love Sally Field as Aunt May. But the emotional pull in this movie and Gwen's death were both two... It's where you see the best writing, is when it comes to the emotion. And Gwen's death was really well written.
It was. It still really kills me, especially, like, when you
really well shot, I should say, too.
Yeah, when you just break it down, like, the entire scene of, like, when she's just hanging there and she goes, "Peter?"
Yeah.
Like, her last words were calling out to Peter in distress. Mm-hmm. And then the visual effects on that, like, when he's trying to save her, mm-hmm. and the web, like, we see an up-close of the web, and it goes from, like, just a shooting into it, like, a small hand.
Yeah.
That's reaching out for her, that, like, you just kind of immediately go, that's Peter's hand, like, basically trying to, like, get to her in time. And, I mean, it kind of just brings into No Way Home, but we still see that, like... Even after Gwen's death, months, it affects him. He goes and sees her almost every day. We see the seasons change.
Yeah.
And that even in No Way Home, when they try to bring up, like, their, like, partner or their love interest, it still affects him. Even in a whole nother dimension, it's still getting to him. And he kind of redeems himself in that.
Yeah.
So, sorry to go off topic there. I just felt like... that's where it shows and how good of a character Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is. Because he's just carrying this emotion with him, and it's personal. It tugs on the heartstrings.
And a lot of it's the face acting again. I think he did a really good job at showing... You almost feel like this is real life when you see him crying. And because, I love Tobey Maguire's, but sometimes his crying can be a little funny. Just because the way he
ugly cries.
Just because the way he like his, you know what I mean. But Andrew Garfield, his tears you apart. Chills.
It's really painful to watch.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure everybody has been, but sadly they had to be in it. Was in a moment of their life where they've seen somebody cry and someone they love shaken or like broken down to their core, mm-hmm. and they just had to cry it out. And that's tough to watch.
It really is.
But with how they, like, rope you into the story, into the emotions and everything, seeing these characters on screen cry like that, mm-hmm. replicates that exact same feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of strong emotion in this movie. One of my favorite parts of both of these movies is the emotion. They both provide you with plentiful tears throughout both watches. But, is there anything else that really sticks out to you in the good? I mean, we kind of mentioned Sally Field. She was great. That You're My Boy scene is another tough one.
The visual...
But I love it.
I would say the visual effects, like, kind of diving in more on those, and, like, kind of the camera angles, cinematography, like, we mentioned it in the first one. But, like, as, like, we're watching Peter swing and shoot his webs, like, mm-hmm. in the first opening scene when he's, like, going around town, like, it's another, like, chest or, like, POV... And we see him, like, swinging to get caught up to the police chase and everything. Also, what I really liked was at the start of the movie after they had the scene explaining, like, what happened to, like, his mom and dad.
Yeah.
And they showed the logo, like, the spider, like, logo for him. It transitions to the one on his back.
Yeah.
And him diving. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That it immediately dived into that. And we were just talking about it with Corey. What I really like more about his suit in this one as well is kind of realistic of, like, the suit's not skin tight. Yeah. Every inch, every movement that he takes, it's not super stiff. That, like, in some movements and in that beginning one, you can see that depending on his movement, there's, like, slack or, like, ripple in the suit. Like, when he's diving down to catch up to the police chase, his, like, shoulder blades are cocked back. So you know that there's that extra slack in the suit.
Yeah.
And you see that there. And later on in the movie, I think even when, like, he's dodging those bullets from Rhino, like, at the start, mm-hmm. you can see some of the suit, like, moving along with him. It's not just, like, skin tight the entire time. It's realistic that, like, it's tight, but if he moves in a certain way or something and there's slack, it's going to be visible.
For sure.
And that's another really good that I liked. Because though I love Toby's suit as well... it's not that skin tight the entire time. It's not sticking to him on every move, even the awkward movements.
Yeah.
So that's I think that might be the only thing out of the good that I'm missing.
Okay. So we'll move on to the meh then. And for here, one we can blow past is Electra fanboy, because you touched on it already. I didn't love that storyline. I didn't love the Max Dillon, how obsessed he was with Spider-Man. And that's why I truly think Electra's character takes off once he falls into the tank of electric eels. But the look of Electra too. I put it in the meh because there were moments where I really got behind, the all blue look. But man, do I love the green and yellow, and I wish we could have seen that. And we obviously got to see that down the road, but I think that would have made me love this character even more. And I know I have his glowing blue head in my collection, but that's just the completionist of me.
Can I try and guess where the scenes of meh in his appearance are for you? Can I try and guess that? Yeah. Okay. Is it when he's in the isolation or the confinement where they're doing those real close-ups of his face and everything? Is that where it is?
That's part of it. Yeah.
That's where it was unsettling for me, is how up close and they really try to emphasize everywhere part of him's blue, his eyes, his pupils, and how you can see when he's getting angry that his forehead, which I'm assuming is trying to show his brain, and part of his face is all turning red.
Yeah.
I was this looks unsettling.
Yeah.
This is unsettling, but if we can see him from a regular distance, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But the up close shots of his character is where I kind of thought, we don't need this. This is where people agree that it kind of looks weird, kind of looks goofy.
Yeah, there's moments. Mostly in the action sequences is when I get behind it, just because of how his character, the mannerisms and the way he moves and all of that, the choreography. But I don't know. I didn't love it. It's a meh for me. Another meh for me is the parent storyline. I get it, but where does it really fit into the story? I mean, I guess you could argue maybe it's him trying to finish his dad's work to help Harry, or it's him constantly needing something from Gwen because he finds something new with his parents. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It didn't really fit for me.
It didn't. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really provide anything. It just kind of enlightened for Peter of what his dad was doing in research, but he kind of already knew that. And the only information it provided when he went down into the train station was that the spiders are with my bloodline.
Yeah.
And that's it. But that's not information that Peter ends up using for anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell Harry that it's not going to work because it's only my bloodline. Exactly.
Because Harry
he had
jumped the gun.
Exactly. So I really think that if it's supposed to be closure for Peter in a sorts,
it gives us the Aunt May, you're my boy scene.
It does.
I don't know. I didn't love the parent storyline. I feel like it's something that could have almost been left out.
I definitely think so.
It almost cuts into the pacing of the movie. For a 2-hour and 22-minute movie, it does move pretty flowingly, but those are the scenes that make it a little bit choppy, it seems like.
Yeah, that really kind of drive it down. When I was rewatching it for this, those were kind of scenes where I was if I need to get up and use the bathroom, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I'm at home.
Yeah.
I have a pause button. I can hit pause, but that's kind of just elaborating more on how unnecessary these scenes were, where even though I have the ability to pause the movie right now, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom, come back, and I guarantee you what I missed is not going to be relevant in the end to the movie.
Yeah. But that's really it for me in the meh. I have a few things in the bad, but what else do you have in the meh?
In the meh, I would say we touched on it in the first movie, the dialogue kind of, or insertion.
The writing in general could fall in the meh. Because the emotional pull is well written.
Yeah.
But there are a couple characters that are poorly written.
And kind of the comedic bits, I would say, on the bridge where Gwen is heading to the airport and the driver's it's Spider-Man, look! And she's stop the taxi, and he's not even moving, lady!
Yeah.
I was this sucks!
The best comedy is definitely from Peter, for the most part.
Oh, yeah. So when they try to, make everybody else, just include any, comedic bits, I'm this sucks.
Stanley.
Yeah,
I know that guy.
It's like, oh, really? Do you? It's like almost in every Spider-Man movie you say that. Rest in peace, Stanley. But like, come on.
I love Stanley, but this is probably one of my least favorite cameos of his.
Yeah, it was.
I love the
shortest.
library scene cameo of his.
In the first movie.
Yeah.
But like in this one, it was by far the shortest cameo and the dumbest line.
Yeah.
I know that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
You really spent the time getting him set up, dressed just to do that?
He has some good cameos in Tobey's movies, but yeah, the dialogue definitely is hit or miss in this movie, and it just goes along with the writing. And I don't put it all on Mark Webb, because I do like a lot of Mark Webb's direction in these films. It's just, again, Sony's handcuffs. It's hard, no creative freedom, and a lot of these things, when you find something that could be thrown in the bad or bad category, it usually falls back on Sony.
It does.
At the end of the day. Any other mess for you?
No. Just because I was kind of rethinking it. I was like, should this be a meh or should this be a bad? And
you got a bad.
A lot of stuff got shifted down to bad.
Let's go to the bad. And we'll start with something I know we agree on. Green Goblin.
Should never happen. Should have never happened. And this is where I've said to everybody else, some people agree with me, some don't, is that this is why this movie kind of suffered the same fate as Tobey's third movie, where they included an extra villain or two, quote two, because, you know, in this one they try to headline that Peter's got to go up against Electro, Green Goblin, and Rhino. Completely discount Rhino, but, you know, we're going to get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But as for Green Goblin, like, they just tried doing too much.
For
and Electro,
sure.
They should have just done like the first movie.
It takes from Electro, in my opinion.
Yeah, one unique choice villain, and he be the sole focus of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, if they would have just stuck with Electro the entire movie, phenomenal. Yeah. Would have been just as good as the first one, and more than likely we would have seen a third.
And, I mean, the argument you have here for Green Goblin and Harry Osborn is he helped free Electro, but you could have come up with something. And I'm not slighting Dane DeHaan, because I really like Dane DeHaan in Chronicle, but he was not a good Harry.
No.
He tried to be scary, but it almost came off laughable. And I hated the look of the Green Goblin. I didn't like his dad either, and you and Corey were kind of talking about that. I hated the Norman Osborn. But I didn't like the look of the Green Goblin. I personally didn't like the laugh. And his writing was horrible. It's Harry's introduced, his dad's dying. His dad's dead, he's dying. Spider-Man won't help him. Green Goblin. Like, it all happens so quick. There's no
build up or like kind of tension to it, and exactly like we were talking about before, and just his writing, like they try to make him scary, but like it's not, and he's just in turn a big whiny baby the entire time, because Norman Osborn, which not the same as compared to the Tobey movies, but like he's dying. Then Harry finally comes into play, and his dad's like, "Oh hey, you have this genetic disease too that's gonna kill you," and it takes effect immediately after his dad dies, and not just like slightly or like you'll have to worry about later on in your life. It's affecting him right away. Yeah, like he's searching for a cure right away, and it's affecting him where like he's just getting drunk all day, and he's just whining about like, I need to find my cure, and that like he's getting like the neck like kind of laceration. It's like, why? That's not realistic. Like, are you saying that as soon as his dad died from suffering of it, it immediately triggers the next blood? Yeah. Which, that's just so dumb, and his whole Green Goblin was awful, especially like after he takes the venom and he's like transforming, kind of. I just thought, okay, he's saying they're probably burning on the inside. Yeah. So what possessed him to like go to this military suit of all things? Like, how was he like focused enough to be like, I need to get into that suit? And how convenient it fits him too. Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoy this movie a lot, quite a bit. Not a lot, but quite a bit. And I feel like if you just cut the Green Goblin out and the parent storyline out, this movie could have been really, really good.
Oh, 100%.
Because another thing I have in the bad is just clean it up. I think the Green Goblin storyline's super messy. I think the parent storyline kind of kills the pacing at moments. And it's just messy. And I think if you just stick with Electro, make this like an hour 40 instead of 220, cut out the parent storyline and cut out Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin, I think you're talking about one of the better Spider-Man movies, but that didn't happen. There are some flaws, and Green Goblin's one of the big ones.
Yeah, cut him out, and Rhino, of course. I mean, at the start of the movie, that's fine if he could maybe like show up in a third movie or something like that. But the fact that like they made him a big headliner for his like scene towards the end of the movie where we get the like street encounter, which was all kinds of awful.
Yeah.
Of like, you're telling me that in like Times Square, where they're all firing at Electro and the like police chief is yelling, "Hold your fire," and they don't stop until he shouts it multiple times.
Yeah.
But that during the Rhino interaction in the street, it takes the police chief just one shout of "Hold your fire."
Yeah.
And they immediately do it. And not just them, but Rhino also follows the order as well because there's a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. And the fact that they're having this kind of banter back and forth in the street of like, "Well, I'm back." And he's like, "Oh, you're going to come kill me? I'm gonna."
Yeah, I didn't like Rhino much either.
Yeah, so
again, love Paul Giamatti. I don't know if that was a good fit.
No, it wasn't. And they should have just...
Should have got a Russian.
They should have immediately just cut him and Green Goblin out, and the whole movie would have just been significantly better.
Yeah, those are definitely the big bads. Green Goblin and just cleaning it up a little bit.
I would agree on the cleanup part. There were small like hints here and there where I'm like, make it make sense, or like don't even include it. Kind of like one scene that still really kind of bothers me if you look at it more, if you want to nitpick, is like when Max is like, in this like section there's an issue. Hey, can you shut off the power to this section? And the guy's like, "Sorry, Max, I'm out the door." It's like, would somebody really say that? Yeah. If they were in that job position where they control that or know that,
he's
like,
getting bullied by everybody.
Yeah, he's getting absolutely like just backhanded by everyone, and then just remembering his name is enough. Where we touched about it, where like Max before is like awful as a character. Like he's holding the birthday card, and because Gwen remembered his name when he just told her like a minute ago, he's like ready to rampage like the door and goes, "She remembered my name."
Yeah,
you just said it.
Yeah.
Like, of course she's going to remember it. It's fresh in her brain.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that, like, she cares. Not to say that she doesn't. Also, another bad was... I would say it's still a bad. Is that, like, when they're on the bridge and the grid scene happens, and they're sitting, like... Gwen and Peter are sitting, like, on top of the bridge, and they see the grid, and they see the explosion, and they go, "Is that Max?" Like, you see how far away it is. It pans out to where you can see how far and big the grid is. It's like, you're telling me you see him. You see him in between all those big lines of power and those poles, and you see this blue floating Jamie Foxx that's hidden by these poles. You're telling me that...
I mean, if you saw the explosion of blue, it might give it away, just because... the Times Square scene could have gave you a hint, a hunch.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's just the first thing that came to my mind when I remember seeing that, is when she was like, "Is that Max?"
Yeah.
I was like, no way you see him. Yeah. No way.
Yeah, it's tough. I still like this movie a lot, but it, like you said, it tried to do too much like the third Toby movie. And ultimately they end up around the same score for me. So, it's big tell why.
Other than that, right now, nothing else is coming to mind for bad for me.
So we'll hop to our final thoughts and ratings. And what do you want to lead off with TASM 2? And what are you giving it out of 10?
For my final thoughts, I would just have to say is that, like, if you stick on, like, kind of the start of the movie and primarily, like, keep the mindset that Electro's the main big bad of this, because how they try to gear it towards, like, Green Goblin really is. It's just that Electro's kind of his pawn. Or part of his plan.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a good watch. But if you just primarily focus that it's Spider-Man versus Electro, like it's intended, like it's supposed to be, it's going to be a great watch.
Yeah.
And I think that's my only, like, kind of final thought on it, is to just stay focused on that and kind of just brush off the small, stupid little things.
Yeah.
And it will be a great watch.
What are you giving it out of 10?
Giving it out of 10... I know last week I gave the first one a 9.2, but this one, because it fell down a bit for me, I'm gonna give it I would say a 7.9.
7.9? Okay.
7.9 out of 10.
I'm in the same range. I'm going to go 7.5. For me, it's carried heavy by, again, the emotion that is brought to this movie, and Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. It's carried a lot by them, and I like them a lot. And when you're talking about a score having weight, they're probably taking up a big chunk of why the score is not lower. It's messy. Cut out the Green Goblin. Cut out the parent storyline. I think this movie's in the mid 8 to low 9 range for me. But with what we got, I do enjoy it enough. I think there's some good comedy here and there. I think there's a strong emotional presence. I think some of the writing's done well. I think some of it's done poorly. I wish we did get the third Andrew Garfield movie with, how we get the little tease of a Sinister Six.
Yeah.
I wish that happened, but maybe it will. I know there's been, since No Way Home, there's been some rumors that Raimi would like to reboot Toby, and I know that people have talked about rebooting Andrew Garfield, getting another movie as well, with maybe in the same universe as Tom Hardy's Venom. Who knows? Maybe we'll see. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a solid movie for me. I still like it a lot. I still have a lot of fun with it. What you said. If you turn your brain off, just look at Spidey versus Electro, you can have a lot of fun with this movie.
For sure. And that's exactly how I viewed it this past time, and exactly how I think if you're going in to see this movie for the first time, or if you're revisiting it after watching this, that's how you should watch this movie to honestly get the most joy out of it.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, it's still a good watch, but the best view is having that mentality. And
despite, the messiness and some of the writing, visually stunning and great action. Again, I love the slow-mo action. And he got a great score. So some of the technical side of things is done very, very well.
Yeah. And I didn't mention this, but Andrew does get his iconic Spider-Man scene, how there's always a Spider-Man scene of either holding back the train or holding back some big transportation. In the start, he flips over that bus and saves it, where it looks exactly like the comic scene, where the kid's walking across the street and he's holding back the bus.
Yeah.
He gets his scene like that.
For sure. A lot of good. It's just kind of muddled down a little bit with
it's like
some bad.
Yeah, it's watered down, but as soon as you just watch it like how we both discussed, you're gonna have a great time.
For sure. That'll do it for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Thank you, Mo, for coming back on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for watching. If you like what you're watching, check out some of these other videos. Hit the subscribe button or follow the social links down below. Again, I appreciate you all, and we will talk to you all soon. Peace.